Welcome back to the Tavern, World Builders. Today we are talking about the children's fantasy movie, How to Train Your Dragon. Beware, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello.
And Christiana.
Hi.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 For anybody who has not seen this movie, the basic premise is there is a Viking village called Burke that is frequently attacked by dragons of various sorts that steal livestock, endangers the villagers, and generally harass everybody around. The chieftain's son, Hiccup, who is abnormally kind of small and deemed as weak for his age and kind of looked down on by everybody, ends up befriending one of the most deadly dragon species.
And the most cutest.
And the
The most adorable.
And they become friends, and in the end, everybody realizes that they can coexist with dragons and cooperate, and it's one of the best films ever created.
Good.
And you should
It's
go
so
watch
good.
it.
I'm jealous of anyone who actually hasn't seen it.
And you get to watch it for the first time.
Yeah,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. With that, let's hop on over to Happy Hour. And we can all rave about how much we love this movie. I love this movie.
It's so good.
There's so many good things about it. The animation, the expressions that Toothless gives, they're
Yes.
so good.
Mm-hmm.
His cute faces.
Yeah, Toothless, again, for anybody who hasn't watched, is the dragon that Hiccup befriends. Yes. Even the expressions that, like, Hiccup and the people do.
My cat reminds me of Toothless because black with like the bright green eyes and like weirdly expressive. And
They based a lot of Toothless's movement on cats. Like, he's very intentionally cat-like,
Oh.
which is
Yes.
super cute and very evident if you own cats.
So my friends and I are currently playing the video game Pal World, which is basically Pokemon, like you're catching cute, adorable animals in balls that you throw at them. And it's so much fun. And I recently caught a creature that kind of reminds me of Toothless, and it makes me so happy every time I see it.
Aww.
So good.
Yeah, the soundtrack, we were also raving about it. Like, it's incredible.
one of the best soundtracks
Such
of all
good
time.
music. I love
Easy.
this soundtrack.
Yes, the soundtrack is by Hans Zimmer, so of course it's incredible because
yes.
everything that he does is
He's amazing.
gold. Yeah, the plot is fantastic. The characters are fantastic. Like, I wouldn't change a single thing about this movie. Like, I think it's just
I wouldn't either.
so well
They're
done.
doing a live action and I'm kind of nervous about that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, well, again, it's one of the ones that are quote-unquote live action, because you can't have live action dragons.
Yeah,
so it's
there's
just a
not
different
real
type
dragons.
of CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't know if it's necessary.
No.
It's one of those movies where I'm like, it's perfect, don't touch it. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
need to
I felt
touch it.
that way about every Disney remake. I'm like, this doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
None of the
remake.
live actions. And I feel like the
Yeah.
general consensus is like that. Like, even
Yeah.
the ones that are good tend to be like, okay, it's good, but nobody wanted
We didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will they use the same soundtrack, or are they going to get a different soundtrack? Because, I don't know.
They can't touch the soundtrack. I will scream.
Right? It would not, like, the soundtrack is actually like huge. Like, it's such a big part of this movie, in my opinion.
It's so
like,
amazing.
It's iconic. Yeah. So I give a thumbs down to the, having not seen
Already,
it, and I will never
preemptively,
see it.
Thumbs down. Yeah.
I might see it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
let us
watch
know
it
how is.
eventually.
More cute,
but-
Toothless, but I
Yeah.
didn't need it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, having now expressed how much we love it, let's talk about some of the meatier stuff. So let's go on over to Tavern Talk. So we're going to be discussing this as a children's fantasy movie, which it is, although it can obviously still be loved and enjoyed by adults just as much. But it is a children's movie, which has some of its own tropes and hallmarks and things to adhere to.
Something that's really nice in children's literature or movies or whatever is if there's also stuff to appeal to adults, because so often
Yes.
parents and guardians and whatever are watching the movie or reading the
Yeah.
thing with the child. And so it's always nice when there's some things that they can enjoy as well. I like it when shows and movies get that balance right, and I think How to Train Your Dragon did.
Well, and I often think it's as simple as just having a good story.
Yeah. I also think the ages of the characters to some extent helped a lot in this. Because Hiccup is, what, like a teenager?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Of some
13
sort.
or 14. 15, I think it explicitly says.
Yeah. If Hiccup was a 9-year-old, it would have changed the story a lot. Like, a lot. Because then it would have been Toothless having to do a lot of the teaching and the guiding, whereas in this one it was Hiccup and Toothless together, both figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes it's a little bit of age. We're not saying that any movie where it's, I mean, E.T. is a fantastic example, despite it traumatizing me as a child, of having a very young kid in a kid's movie, but it still works and it still makes sense and it's still enjoyable as an adult. But I think this one did require a slightly older character.
Yeah, so interesting with middle grade books, when you're writing middle grade, readers tend to read age up. So the target age for middle grade is like 8 to 12-year-olds, but the protagonist age is like 10 to 13-year-olds. So I just find that interesting. So you have a bit more leeway for doing some of those things that adults might also be intrigued by having a slightly older protagonist.
I do think a lot of times it just comes down to like having a good story. Like, no matter how old the kid, like thinking of like, you know, like the Narnia books, which are about children, or like Bluey, which is a child show that I like and a lot of adults also enjoy.
Do they? I was going to use that as an example, and then I'm like, I've never seen Bluey. So do adults
do not
also
have
like
a child, and I have watched multiple full episodes of Bluey because it's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my favorite animated shows are Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is for children, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which is for kids.
Yeah.
I love My Little Pony.
I love that for you.
So, there's definitely an adult audience to be captured if you just write a good story.
Yeah, and like sometimes those can be like tinged with nostalgia where it's like, oh, would I still enjoy this? But like, yeah, some of those things, like I didn't watch Avatar till I was an adult and I love it. So
I mean,
like,
I didn't watch My Little Pony till I was an adult, so there's no nostalgia
exactly.
there. I just thought it was cute.
So there is something universal in stories. Although it definitely does help if they're of a certain, like Christiana was saying, if this was a story about a 9-year-old and a dragon, I don't know how it would have, like, it would have been a fundamentally different story. So I can't, who knows if it would have hit the same.
Yeah.
Which shows that they did a great job in picking like the age of the protagonist based on the story that they wanted to tell, right?
I feel like they fit the protagonist to the world in this instance. Sometimes you can kind of build a protagonist and then make a world around telling that protagonist's story to some extent. This is one of those instances where I feel like the idea of the world came first and the characters came second. Is what I kind of get the feeling of. Yeah.
I could see that. Some common characteristics of children's fantasy are like whimsy and weirdness, which I think is definitely present in this. Like the dragons are all very a lot of that came from like the design. Like some of the dragons just look very like not your classical, elegant, powerful dragon, but like
very weird.
Goofy.
Like there's one that reminds me of Heimlich from Bug's Life, where it's just like this big chonky dragon with his little tiny eyeballs. And
I think a lot of the whimsy actually is gotten across by the music. Like this sort of flowing, very orchestral, very fun at times, like playful soundtrack.
Even the like Viking characters, I think some of them are very whimsical. Like I'm thinking of the blacksmith, who's just this like wildly like larger than life character who has like these prosthetics he keeps swapping out for different, like he switches to a meat hook and then he switches to like a different thing.
And even Hiccup's dad is kind of like larger than life, like very stern, but also like this sort of caricature of what a Viking would be.
Yeah, I think that's a great like caricature and like being not quite realistic, I think is a big hallmark of children.
I mean, and works for a cartoon, an animated movie, obviously.
Yeah.
I wonder if you need to tone that down a bit if you're writing a novel. Can you be can you do as much caricature work whimsy if you don't have the animation
the visuals
to go with it? Yeah.
Well, so one example is not proof, but I think of like Alice in Wonderland is like
that's true.
Wild.
It's bonkers.
Granted, that's an older book, so who knows how it would do these days.
A more modern-ish one, and it's kind of adult. It's not middle grade, but like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think is a good example of very over-the-top, silly.
Yeah.
Current middle grade, you will still see sort of personalities being bigger, like a little bit bigger
Yeah.
or like highlighted, like, oh, this is the grumpy teacher, you know, so they're always going to be like,
like
focusing on
Matilda,
that,
I
bringing
think of.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matilda, yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
So yeah, I think oftentimes in books it's going to be more with like the personalities. I mean, it can be in the physical description as well. Like I think
You gotta be careful with that, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But like,
I don't like. Actually,
it,
I'm gonna say I don't like it. Like in Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling focuses so much on characters' fatness and like.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean larger than life in like being. I meant like just like
well, you said physical characteristics.
Yeah, but I mean like like you could also have a character who's like super tall or very thin, like like something that's just exaggerated. Yeah. Not necessarily just in. I think if it's just in like fatness, I agree. Like that's.
I mean, Rowling uses fatness as like a code for a bad character.
Bad
like all
and
the
stupid
characters described as fat, are either bad or stupid.
Yeah,
and it's like okay, but where like, and then Neville is the one who's like a little bit fat, but he's not described as fat. He's described as like plump or slightly pudgy, and it's like different, and so it's like no, don't do that. I also don't like villains constantly having scars or disabilities. That's also it's not that your villain can't have a disability, but you also need other characters to have them as well.
Yeah, you need to be very mindful if you're bringing in personality characteristics and portraying it through physical characteristics. You have to be super, super careful with that.
Sure. And bringing this back to How to Train Your Dragon, I love that both Toothless and Hiccup are disabled. Hiccup not at first, but he ends up losing his leg or his foot.
I think it's his lower leg, like below the knee.
The knee.
Yeah. And then Toothless has like a missing tail, not feather, but like
that's part in the beginning too.
Yeah, because when Hiccup knocks him down out of the sky,
Hiccup does that to him.
Yeah,
breaks his tail.
I really love how it's good characters who have the disability. They're not like made evil by their disability. They're definitely disadvantaged and they have to learn how to like not overcome, because you can't overcome a disability, but sort of work with it. And like Hiccup builds him the tail fin for him that he can like help control, and it's so endearing.
Yeah. And then at the end they both have like matching wounds.
I'm literally tearing up thinking about it. It's the sweetest thing in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
Okay, next up.
It's also really important to the plot that the sort of mobility aid that Hiccup fashions for Toothless can't use it on his own. It's a little like almost like kite-like piece that comes off of his tail, but because it's not like, attached, like his body doesn't control it, Hiccup controls it with like a harness, so using his feet he can like make it turn one way or the other and open, so like it ends up being like a beautiful like friendship teamwork thing that they have to like work together in order to do, which is also then very important for the plot because it forces them to kind of work together.
I feel like that could be problematic in that Toothless is losing some of his autonomy. But the story doesn't really go there. Because Hiccup never
and it doesn't need
to.
I feel like
it doesn't need to.
They get a pass on that one. Yeah.
I mean, we do see Toothless still being able to do like even like at one point he rescues Hiccup by like diving through the air, so it's not that he's completely
it's not and he can still run around. It's just flying is
certain things
difficult.
But I also think that that's a kind of a nice metaphor of like we can do things in community that we can't on our own. Like sometimes there's so much of a focus on like you have to be able to do everything by yourself. It's like I'm not actually sure that's how life should be, and maybe we should have to.
That's a really good point, Emma. I love that.
That is, like disabilities only exist because society allows it. Is something that I
or like the impact of disability only. I feel like oftentimes in children's media, I don't know, I'm not as familiar with children's media, but how is disability often tackled in?
It is more now. So with newer books, I've read a couple recently that I just loved. One of them was called Not Quite a Ghost by Anne Ursu. And it was kind of like a horror where this girl gets a chronic illness. And so she's sort of stuck in her bedroom and there's this ghost creature in her walls that's like haunting her and terrifying her. It was so good. And I really felt seen by this character with a chronic illness because I also have a chronic illness. And I also feel like stuck in my room and house sometimes and just like It really captured that. And then there's this other one. I'm just plugging books I've recently read.
Yeah.
It's called Accidental Demons by Claire Edge, and it's about this girl who's from a witch family and she has diabetes. And so the magic system is like about summoning demons, and so every time she tests her blood, she like accidentally summons demons because blood summons.
What an interesting premise,
right?
Yeah, I love that.
That's cool.
So I'm seeing a lot more of really thoughtfully tackled disabilities, and I think even 10 or so years ago, it wasn't quite as a lot of ableist tropes, a lot of sort of villains that are visually, scarred and things to like demonstrate their villainy. And it's like, well,
the default just being your character is able-bodied and healthy, and why would they ever be anything different?
You don't see a lot of disabled middle grade characters in older text, but I'm seeing a lot more, and I'm loving it. So that's really exciting.
I like that made sense for the society that was built as well. Like, you see other Vikings who have, like, missing limbs, and it's never brought up as, like, because sometimes you could expect that in that society be like, oh, well, you've lost your limb, you're no longer a warrior because you can't whatever. But in this, it was just like, nope, you get a prosthetic and you're just as much a Viking as before. You can,
It's almost like a testament that you've been in a fight. Yeah. Like, you're tough, you've got it, you've had a limb just gonna say,
or
something.
It also makes sense for people who, I'm sure there are inevitably some folks who are like, do you need so much rep though? And it's like, yeah, they're fighting dragons all the time. People are going to lose limbs. Like,
exactly.
It would be shocking if there was if there wasn't a single person with like a physical limb difference because of that. Like, you're fighting dragons. That's going to happen. So it
and
makes
I
sense
love
internally.
That they just include those people in their society, and they're not less than. If anything, it's the opposite.
It's
and
really
And you can see they've put the tech. Like, you can see they have pretty high tech, like, artificial limbs. Like, they've clearly put in the effort to have this for people who have lost limbs. So it's like their society cares about making sure that that's not something that impacts you.
What a
or
great
like lessens
society.
the impact as much as possible.
I really liked that choice.
I saw this interview one time with an anthropologist. This is a tiny bit of an aside, where they said, like, how do you decide when a society is a society? What defines it? And they said, when we see healed bones in the skeletons, because it means other people were there to care for them. And to, like, help them heal the bone. They lived long enough to heal through that injury. That means it's a society. And I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful concept. I love that so much.
Working together.
Yeah. And this sort of ties into one characteristic of children's literature is a hopeful tone. You tend to not get those, like, dark, dreary endings except that Animorphs. You sometimes get.
Except for Animorphs.
Well, Animorphs has a bittersweet ending. It's
kind of.
I guess
there's the hope is buried. It's a tiny kernel.
And I said common. You can always break any advice or tropes or rules.
But listen to our
in
Animorphs
quotation
episode
marks.
if you haven't already. Self-plug for there. Sorry, go on,
Actually,
Alice.
I really enjoyed Animorphs. But in general, in a lot of kids' literature, there's this sort of hopeful tone. And so I think that just plays into the decision to make this society embrace disability as opposed to make them outcasts is sort of, it really leans into that hopefulness. And like, here's what a society could look like if this was our attitude.
Yeah. Another characteristic of children's, like, fantasy or children's media in general is humor is often, like, a big thing, and that definitely, like, is, like, Hiccup is super, like, sarcastic and wry, and, like, a lot of the other characters are also,
Toothless
like...
he's quite funny for not being able to talk. Like, he gives expressions and, like, reactions to the stuff that Hiccup does. It's very good.
Yeah. Oh, some of the other, like, comic relief characters. Like, you often, like, in this, I feel like almost every character is a comic relief character. Like, there's almost no, like, straight man characters. Like, the twins, you have these two Vikings that are twins that are just, like, morons,
And
basically.
they end up riding a
Like-
dragon that has 2 heads, so they're like on the
Yeah.
same dragon, which is like not practical at all. Like, why wouldn't you be on a second dragon? But it's very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also the humor in one of the classmates who's a very large, like he's very tall, he's very broad, and then his dragon is like this little tiny thing with little tiny wings, like so like they have some physical comedy in there that's like very funny.
Yeah.
Magical creatures, of course, is often in children's fantasy, which you got right. They're not strictly like there's not quote unquote magic, like they don't really have any magical powers, but they are like fantasy
They're
creatures.
Well,
dragons.
Hiccup, or not Hiccup, Toothless kind of breathes like lightnings, doesn't
Yep.
he?
Oh,
Or like,
yeah.
so there is a bit of magic in there, but also
that's fair.
Toothless seems to be more of a special dragon. Like the other dragons don't seem to be able to have
Oh,
those.
No,
magic
they do
powers.
say that that's one of their training things. Is like each dragon has its own kind of like breath attack.
Yeah.
Like some of them
Oh,
spit
there you
poison,
go.
some of them spit lightning.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would maybe say for me, I don't know that
There's
I count
a
that as
bit.
magic. It feels
Yeah.
more like a
It's
biological
magical
thing.
creature.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's
It's
fair.
sort of, but yeah. Yeah, but there's not really a magic system in this.
No.
Like, you don't have a very strong, like, Hiccup doesn't do magic
No.
or anything. And I think that works fine.
the closest thing is maybe there's the really big like elder dragon that can hypnotize all of the smaller dragons. to
Yeah,
bring
like
it
mind
food.
control almost kind of thing.
Yeah. Even that you could be more of that like biological, like it's the queen.
Yeah.
Like a
Mhm.
hive system or whatever. But
Yeah, and this story doesn't need a bigger magic system. I didn't
No,
need
it doesn't.
Hiccup to be able to cast magic, you know.
that would have
none of
muddled
that.
it, I think.
Yeah.
That would
I
have been
think
like,
so.
why?
Yeah.
Also in children's fantasy, there's often like black and white, good versus evil. I don't know if this had that.
I mean, the big dragon, there's
Big
not really
dragon
much
evil.
nuance
Yeah.
with it. It's bad. So you definitely do
Yeah,
have that. You have
that's
some
fair.
more nuance with the Vikings themselves being a big antagonist to Hiccup. Because they like don't accept him and they don't accept the dragons, that they can have a good relationship with dragons. Like they want to kill dragons is sort of what the society is built on. And that's much more nuanced, which maybe is what makes this such a more intriguing story for adults to watch, is that there's not that
Yeah.
like total black and white.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the dragons are attacking the Vikings because the big dragon is forcing them to, and then the Vikings are attacking the dragons because the dragons are attacking them.
Yeah, there's still a big bad evil guy. There's no nuance there, but the rest of it is
Yeah.
pretty nuanced, yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. There's also often quests and mentors in children's fantasy. We did have some mentor, like they explicitly like kind of go to fighting school, so they're being trained
Yeah.
on how to do things.
Yeah, you often have your like wizard Gandalf type
Yeah.
character.
I feel like you also get reluctant mentors a lot
Yeah.
in children's fantasy where it's
The
like,
grumpy
why-
mentor.
yeah, why would I bother teaching you, kid, kind of thing, and then they show some
Haman.
crazy
I work
skill.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah, the Haman, yeah.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
I feel like you see that a lot as well. Reluctant mentors, too.
Although there's not a ton of mentoring in this. Like, it's a lot of Hiccup kind of figuring out stuff
Yeah.
for himself.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that makes it so interesting is that Hiccup and Toothless especially are kind of mentoring each other. Like Toothless is trying to teach Hiccup, this is what my needs are. And here's what I could teach you. And Hiccup's doing the same thing back. So
And then in the end, Hiccup becomes the mentor because
Yeah,
he
teaching
teaches
his
the rest of the
classmates.
village
Yeah.
how to deal with dragons, which is very
Wonderful.
cute.
You do often have adults who don't get it in a middle grade story. Like,
yeah.
who are, getting in the way of the protagonist because the story needs to be about the kid, right? So you have, like, Hiccup's dad who just doesn't understand.
But he tries, and
he
it's so
tries.
sad.
It's very
cute. He's doing his
Kind of
best.
disowns him at some point, too, though, once he realizes he's working with Toothless and that he was hiding a dragon
Yeah.
to a little extent.
Does he? I know
Yeah.
if they like have a fight.
think
Does
they
he go
do.
as far to be like, "You're not my
I
son"?
took it as a disowning,
Oh,
but
interesting.
I don't know if it's like,
yeah.
you are no longer my kid. Get out.
It
kind of thing,
definitely
but
was
it's-
like a disappointment.
Felt like that,
This
yeah.
isn't who I raised you to be, sort of thing.
Yeah. And for children's literature, you often have those themes of like kids trying to figure out where they fit in the world, where they fit in their own family, like parental relationships. So that's very much all here. There's often like I don't fit in, which I know, Emma, sometimes you have issues with that trope. Like, I feel different and special, and
If
like
it's
no one
taken
gets
to
me.
it, yeah. If it goes too far, and then I'm just like, I get it.
But I think it was a light enough hand here that
yeah.
it wasn't annoying. I think it made a lot of
Yes.
sense. And that's also how a lot of kids feel, like, even if they
Yeah.
aren't particularly different. Like, I remember feeling, no one gets me as a child, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone, I'm
Yeah.
sure at some point has that phase where you're
Totally.
like, I'm
Yeah.
the only one in the world who's ever experienced this.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, so those are really common themes in kidlit. Understandably, that's what, most kids are going through. And
Yeah.
so you definitely see all that in here.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting that, like, because oftentimes I think you'll have, like, if the people not understanding you kind of get it as, like, and I think maybe this is when it more bothers me, it's, like, that very black and white, like, oh, well, they're just bullies, or they're mean, and that's why they don't
Yeah.
understand me. But in this one, it very much was, like, his dad was trying. Like, his dad loved him. His
Yeah.
dad tried to connect with him, didn't know how. His blacksmith mentor tried to connect with him, didn't know how. The other kids, not as much, because they're children
They're
and not
kids.
necessarily
Yep.
reaching out as much. But there is definitely this, like, it was almost like a tragedy sense of, like, these people who are all trying their best but just don't know how to connect with each other.
Yeah, I really liked that, as opposed to having just the dad be like a bully mean guy. You know,
Yeah.
I really loved that it was more nuanced than that. He was
Yeah.
trying, he wants to love Hiccup.
Yeah.
But he is definitely lacking some
skills.
some skills in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
And really showing, like, the Viking culture of like stubbornness and, like,
This is
you
what we
know.
do because we're Vikings,
Yeah,
and that's what Burke
you
does.
know?
Yeah.
So I really like that character really ties into the world building, because it's like it's all sort of enmeshed together.
I think it also kind of ties into that. The other thing we were discussing with children's literature is this kind of art, I think more so in, like, movies and shows than maybe books, but there's something in it for the parents. I could see parents, like, I don't have kids myself, but I have nibblings and friends with kids and stuff like that. I could see a lot of parents relating to the dad in this situation and being like, like, I just want I want to be there for you, and I want you to be so happy. I have no idea what you're doing. What is Fortnite? Like, why is this happening? Kind of thing. So I could see that also being, like, a relating feature for the adults who are consuming it, right?
A really interesting thing about writing for kids is that you do have to consider the parents, because the parents or the guardians or the adults are often the ones buying the books for the kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that's bad. Like, sometimes I think, well, I don't want to be writing to a parent. I want to be talking to this kid. And there's like sort of this tension between, how do I make the parent happy but also reach the child, you know?
And it's also so tough because it's so dependent on each person and each, like, my mom let me read Anne Rice when I was like 11 years old. She didn't care because she's like, it's a book. You like vampires, here you go, have at her. But wouldn't let me watch The Simpsons. And I was like, So, like, it really kind of depends on each individual person, too. So it's kind of impossible to appeal to parents as a broad category, because everyone will have their own approach
it's
to
tough.
it, right?
Kidlit writers have it tough. I feel for y'all out there.
Yeah. There's also often a trope in, like, children's media of, like, parents who are dead, because that often is required in order for the kids to, like, go on their adventures. So it's like, well, if they had a guardian at home, they wouldn't be out at 10 at night because they're here. And in this one, the mother is dead, which is also, I think, one of the things that you see is affecting Stoic and Hiccup's relationship. Like, I think Stoic is still very much, like, you can tell he loved his wife. He's very much
literally
grieving
stoic.
her. Yeah, he never expected to be a single parent, and so now he's like, and I think it's one of those situations where he's also like, he's thinking, oh, she would have been better at this. She would have known how to connect to our kid, and I don't.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where once Hiccup starts doing good in dragon school, Stoic is so excited and, like, wants to connect with him about it, but Hiccup can't actually talk about it because he's doing it based on things he's learned from Toothless, and he can't reveal it. So it's like, that scene, like, gets me, because it's like his dad is so excited for them to finally have something in common, and Hiccup's, like, pushing him away, and I'm just like, oh, it's so
I know.
heartbreaking.
I'm tearing up again. Oh my goodness. This
I
episode
cried
is killing
so many
me, you
times in
guys.
this movie.
I think in Viking culture, you could definitely have Hiccup going off on his own. Like it wouldn't really
yeah.
phase
At 15, it
me.
wouldn't
So I
happen,
don't
yeah.
necessarily think the death of his mom helps with that. But
No.
so much of the other things
Yeah.
you were talking about, like just the relationship with the dad, the sort of
Yeah.
Hiccup feeling a little bit more separate because he doesn't have like a support that maybe his mom would have been. We actually don't know. We don't know what his mom was like. But
Yeah.
We do in later movies.
yeah.
Spoilers for
Ah,
later
yeah.
How to Train Your Dragons movies. But yes, in this one, we don't know. Sometimes, not all the time. I think it's, for my impression, it's maybe 50-50 of there being like romance in kids' literature. And not like full-on romance. Normally, it's like
But
we have
little
a crush,
crushes.
or like
Yeah.
give our first kiss or something, which you did get in
Yeah.
this. Like there's Hiccup and his classmate Astrid, who he has a crush on her and she thinks he's a loser.
Yeah.
And then they by the end, they're like kind of a thing.
I think that is very cute and relatable when you do
Yeah.
get like sort of first crushes and
Mhm.
feelings and emotions and not quite knowing how to deal with them. I think, as a middle grader, I definitely had that. I would also like to see some more like ace representation, like asexual stuff in middle grade. But I think a nice mix.
Yeah, not every story needs it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but I will also say I feel like seldom stories are hurt by it. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you have it in there, it doesn't always do anything, but it kind of very rarely like you're like, oh, that's awful because it's in there.
Themes of friendship are quite important for middle
Yeah.
grade. Like when I think of Hiccup and Astrid in this story, I actually think more about the friendship journey as opposed like
Yeah.
the
I would
crush
like
is
to
in
see
there as
more of that.
well.
Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's more about them like actually coming to like each other as friends. And then the crush sort of is in there.
Because
but,
I think
Yeah.
friend crushes are also very real, especially
Yeah.
as, teenagers. I remember one of my longest friends ever. I was like, she's so cool. There's no way she'd want to hang out with me. And then it's the same thing. She was like, I thought you were so punk and like hardcore and intense. And I was like, there's no way they'd want to hang out with me. And then now we're in our 30s and still very close kind of thing. So like
I remember
that
feeling
happens
that
from
way
that,
about
too.
one of my adult friends being like, oh, there's no way this guy will hang out with me. And then
I know, yeah. And then you're like,
He's too
they
cool.
like me?
Yeah. We're buddies. Yay.
Yeah, I guess we didn't touch it, but like friendship, I think maybe because it's so obvious, but like friendship is a huge theme
Yeah.
It is,
in kids. Like kids literature in general, including kids fantasy.
And often sort of being forced to be in a group of your peers because you're either like going to school or in this case it's dragon school. And so you don't really get to choose who you're hanging out with. You're sort of forced to interact with these people. That's a really common one as well. And sort of learning how to
get along with people.
Get along. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, let's jump on over to Proprietor's Pick. Allison, what do you have for us as a comp for How to Train Your Dragon?
So, as I was researching this, I learned that How to Train Your Dragon is a book series for children, which I had no idea. I thought it was just a movie.
That. Apparently, it's super different. Like, if you read it, it's like almost indistinguishable, except or like almost non-recognizable, except for the title.
I've also heard that. But if you want to check it out, it's by Cressida Cowell, and apparently David Tennant narrates the audiobook, which
I'm
is
going to
amazing.
listen to it.
That's
Because I love David Tennant. So
Yeah, same.
little plug. That's not my official pick, but I just had to mention
Bonus
that because I
pick.
think that's cool.
Yeah.
So my pick, I'm leaning into the magical creature element of How to Train Your Dragon. My pick is Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundle, and here's what it's about. The day Christopher saved a drowning baby griffin from a hidden lake would change his life forever. It's the day he learned about the archipelago, a cluster of unmapped islands where magical creatures of every kind have thrived for thousands of years, until now. And it's the day he met Mal, a girl on the run who desperately needs his help. Mal and Christopher embark on a wild adventure, racing from island to island, searching for someone who can explain why the magic is fading and why magical creatures are suddenly dying. They consult sphinxes, battle kraken, and negotiate with dragons. But the closer they get to the dark truth of what's happening, the clearer it becomes. No one else can fix this. If the archipelago is to be saved, Mal and Christopher will have to do it themselves.
I love an archipelago of undiscovered magic creatures. That
and then you've got
incredible.
quests and adventure and magic creatures.
I like
more than
the
just
mix.
dragons.
Yeah, I like the mix of magic creatures. That's always a big fan of. Like,
it sounds
I
really
love
fun.
any story with that. Yeah.
This is middle grade, so if you're an adult, get it and read it with your kids. It sounds really fun. Or just read it for yourself. That's fine too. I read middle grade all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is out already. And I also love a baby griffin. So, griffins are
cute.
I mean, it's still a common fantasy creature, but I feel like griffins aren't quite as
not
popular
quite as
as
common.
Dragons are the big one. Yeah. Baby
Which,
griffin is really
I love
cute.
a dragon. So, but also griffins.
And with that, it's last call. Here are some concluding thoughts and questions that you can apply to your own world building from the world building of How to Train Your Dragon. Christiana, what do you take away from How to Train Your Dragon to apply to world building?
The disability rep. It's perfect. I love it so much. I think it's a really good example of how you can incorporate people with disabilities into stories without it being like a tale of woe and misery, or more specifically, a villain origin story. I think also specifically when it comes to children's fantasy or like family stories, things like that, it's a really good way to introduce kids not just to the concept of disability. Yes, that's important and it needs representation, but to the idea of sometimes things will happen to you and they're gonna suck. Like it's gonna suck. And if you have a community that you can lean on, that's great. Overcoming barriers and obstacles in general. So I really, really loved the way that the world building in this just incorporated it. It was a thing in the world. It was a noticeable thing in the world, but it wasn't, the thing. It didn't make a villain out of anyone. Of course, if you're going to include it in the story, if this is something that happens to a character, you kind of have to be a little sensitive and thoughtful about how you approach it. But I think it's a really fantastic example of including the disabled community, such as myself. I loved it. I thought it was great. So
that's great advice.
Also, dragons, more dragons,
more dragons. Everything should have dragons, or
every story, at least one dragon. Yeah,
I can't think of a story that would be worse for having a dragon in it. I think every story, Matilda plus dragon, better.
Yeah, throw a dragon in it. Throw a dragon in it.
Hashtag throw those dragons.
Yes.
Allison, what do you take away from How to Train Your Dragon?
I'm gonna say embrace the whimsy.
Yes, that's a good one.
Hashtag
sometimes it's better to choose the fun choice than the smart choice or the logical choice. So for example, the twins riding on the two-headed dragon is not the smart choice. Like, it would be smarter for them to each have their own dragon, like for a fight, But it's funny and it's fun. And so, like, sometimes when you're writing, just ask yourself, like, if you're trying to decide between, two directions, which one's more fun? Because that might actually be the right choice, even if it's not, like, the one that makes the most sense.
Yeah, not the most
Absolutely.
tactical option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. One thing that I'm going to take away from How to Train Your Dragon that I think is fun for fantasy is that not every fantasy needs to have a magic system. You can have fantasy that just has, fantastical creatures or a fantastical setting or, elves and dwarves without there being strict, like, explicit magic. And I love a magic system, but I also think it's fun. Not every story needs a magic system. Like, we've now established the continuum of magic systems to dragons, where every story needs a dragon. Not every story needs a magic system. So feel free to leave it out if it doesn't benefit your story.
But you gotta get that dragon.
Don't leave out the dragon.
But you do have to have a dragon.
Yeah.
Legally obligated.
Legally obligated to include a dragon somewhere in your story. We don't make the rules.
We just enforce them. What can we say?
Unfortunately, this brings us to closing time. We would love to stay longer, but these wooden walls are not going to fireproof themselves.
Ooh.
For all those dragons that are now roaming around everywhere, having legally been obligated to be here. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern today. If hands-on world building is something that interests you, make sure you check out our world building workshops. These are bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session and are available for patrons at our $5 and up tiers at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. In this month's episode, which should already be out for you to listen to, we are building a secret society. And we're going to record it right after this episode. So will it be filled with dragons? Probably.
Maybe.
Probably.
Secret Dragon Society, at least in the name. Maybe it won't actually have to do with real dragons, but we can name
There you go.
it
Sneak
after.
preview. For more of this, go check out that episode. Check out our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza. And you can also find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books that we talk about on the podcast, which will support us and an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram.
Bye.
Get out of here.